Sure, now it doesn't want to do it.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the MetaStellar YouTube channel. Oh, I forgot my background. Oh, wait. Oh, guys. I've been doing these videos for 3 years now, and you guys have never seen my office because the office behind me was like a blank wall with a dead plant on it. Not very appealing. I've been meaning to switch things around since the pandemic started, and finally, 4 years later, I moved my bookshelves from in front of me, where I can look at them, but you can't, to behind me, where they can make me look smart. So, welcome to my office. And now I have a plant that will never die because it's plastic. And here's my little MetaStellar cup right there, which you can buy in our gift shop. Okay, so welcome back to the MetaStellar YouTube channel. MetaStellar, I'm the editor here at MetaStellar. My name is Maria KOROLOV. And if you're looking for free science fiction and fantasy books to get you through the weekend, you've come to the right place. Today's list includes a college student who makes things explode with her mind, a vampire killer stalking the streets of London, and count them, two complete series box sets. But before we get to that, I want to thank reviews editor Krista Noland and also editors E.S. Foster, Terry Wells, and Lilibet Dominguez Torres for helping us out with the reviews. And Emma and Terry are here with us today. Hi, Emma. Hi, Terry.
All right.
So get the books while they're still free. Today is April 12th, and there's no telling how long the books will stay free. Authors make them free as a promotion, as do the publishers. But even if you're watching this later and they're no longer free, you might still find your next great read here. So stick around. Oh, and some of the books are in Kindle Unlimited. Kindle Unlimited is where you pay $12 a month and you read all the books you want. So there's no additional cost. And if a book is in Kindle Unlimited, we will tell you. And if you subscribe to our newsletter, the link is in the description box below. You will get this list every single Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time in your inbox so you don't miss any of these great free books because we do this every Friday. Also, MetaStellar is a free online magazine of speculative fiction. All the content is always free to our readers. We publish original short fiction, reprints, excerpts, essays, and lots of book reviews. And we're able to do this thanks to our Patreon supporters. Our spring submission cycle is over, but if you want to submit short stories, you can always submit reprints. And our next original fiction submission cycle is in October. And we have 2 anthologies out, and we're working on the 3rd one right now. And we also have other stuff that you can buy. All right, so all the bookkeeping aside, all done, let's get into the books. All right, let me make that a little bit bigger for you guys so you can see the cover. There you go. The Faders Trilogy by E.G. Bateman. This is a complete box set of the Faders Trilogy, which is a young adult urban fantasy series. And this is the author's first time on our Free Friday list. So the protagonist's name is Jenna. She's nearly 16 and a normal teenager, except for the fact that people are watching her. And when she looks around and catches them at it, they pretend they'd be looking something else all along and they just like wander away. And she's been complaining about this, and her dad was on the verge of taking her to see somebody about it. And then she just stopped telling people. And we learn all this because the book opens with her writing in her diary. And so she's a little paranoid. She should probably see somebody. I'm all about mental health. But since this is a sci-fi or fantasy book, I'm going to go on the limb here and say that she's not imagining it. People are, in fact, actually watching her. Maybe it's because she's a long-lost princess of Fae or something. I don't know. I haven't read the book's description or even looked all that closely at the cover. So I'm guessing here. So after she writes in her diary, Jenna heads off to enjoy the start of summer vacation with her best friend, Gil. They're on a trip. I think it's to Scotland with Jenna's dad. They meet up at a cafe, and Gil brought a pack of tarot cards so they read each other's fortunes. Jenna finds out that she'll achieve her heart's desire. Maybe she'll finally figure out why people are watching her. But also that she would marry a hunchbacked elf, and Gil was going to become the bearded lady in a traveling circus and give birth to a monkey. And I don't know whether to take this seriously or not. I mean, this is a speculative fiction book, so those things might well come true. And honestly, I'll feel a little bit let down if they don't. Anyway, Jenna's dad joins them in the cafe, and then Jenna gets that prickly feeling that somebody's watching her again. And she turns around, and this time the person continues staring at her, and it's a cute boy who's just a little older than she is. He winks at her, she blushes, and her dad asks her if she's okay and whether she's taken her pill this morning. So maybe her dad did take her to a therapist and she's on anti-anxiety meds. There's nothing wrong with getting help if you need it. But it turns out that it's not anti-anxiety medication, it's an iron pill for her anemia. And she ran out 2 days ago and didn't tell her dad. Instead, she went to a supermarket and bought some random brand of iron pills. After the cafe, the three of them go to a bookstore where the two girls find a dirty book. They take turns reading it while the other one stands guard to make sure nobody catches them at it. And Jenna has this dirty book inside a Harry Potter for camouflage, but she's actually reading the Harry Potter, not the dirty book, because I guess it's too embarrassing for her. And then the boy from the cafe mysteriously appears behind her and makes fun of the book she's reading. And she blushes again, and the boy leaves. Then Gil wants her turn with the dirty book while Jenna stands lookout. And Jenna does that, but after a few minutes, she starts feeling hot again and hears a buzzing in her ears. So she goes outside for some fresh air and begins to pass out. Then this boy shows up again, catches her before she falls. But instead of taking her to the nearest bench to sit down, he starts dragging her towards a back fence. She struggles, falls to the ground, and then she feels like her brain exploding. There's a loud bang, electronic wails, wind, and she's having trouble seeing. It looks like the world has lost its color, except for the boy who disappears into a cloud of yellow mist. Her dad comes out, helps her up, takes them back to their hotel, and then that's where she confesses that she ran out of pills and bought replacements at a supermarket. And her dad says they have to go home, they have to pack, they have to leave right away. So that's the beginning of the book. I don't usually like young adult stories. Young people annoy me because I'm old and cranky. But I kind of was getting caught up in this one. The mystery grabbed me. I like the banter between Joanna and her friend. I like the dad. I don't like the cute boy because, I'm not a fan of cute boys. But I might stick with it this weekend anyway. All right. Next we have The Fire in the Glass by Jacquelyn Benson, the first of 4 books in the London Charismatics, a gothic historical fantasy series. The other books are $6 to $7 each, and they're not in Kindle Unlimited. And this is the author's first time on our Free Friday list. And Emma read this for us. And Emma, what did you think of this book?
Yeah, I really enjoyed what I initially started reading, especially with like all of the different elements I'm gonna clue you in on as I continue with this. But I'll start off by saying that the story takes place in Edwardian London, 1914. It starts off with Lilith Albright, and she goes by Lily. She's racing through the English countryside on her motorcycle, and she's trying to escape from something, it looks like. We don't know what it is, but then it turns out that the threat that she's trying to supposedly run from hasn't actually happened yet. It's in the future, and Lily's trying to actually figure out a way to stop it. Because it turns out that she has her entire life been plagued with visions of the future. So, like, eventually she describes how she used to pinch herself, recite Milton, things like that, just to get rid of these visions, but they always crop up anyway, at random times. So the scene then shifts to a few minutes earlier, when she's standing in front of her bathroom mirror. Lily's standing there, She's just trying to get ready for the day. All of a sudden, the world around her changes and she realizes she's experiencing another one of those visions. She doesn't have any control over it, so it's just kind of like she's standing there and everything around her is changing. She has a vision of outside of an apartment in the middle of a blizzard, and then against her will, she's swept inside and upstairs to her friend Estelle's room, because this is her friend Estelle's house. She witnesses a bunch of frightening things in this vision. Like, for example, Estelle's dog is green and it's completely sliced in half, but it's moving around like normal. And it just looks at her like, oh, yeah, a person's here, like a dog does. And also, Lily doesn't seem too put off by this. She's used to it by now. She's like, this is probably not even the weirdest thing I'm going to see today. So, Lily is then dragged into Estelle's own bathroom, and she's sitting in front of her vanity. All of a sudden, a mysterious shadow wielding a long silver knife jumps out of the closet behind Estelle and then stabs Estelle, presumably to death, but we don't know for sure yet. Instead, Estelle is dragged away by this mysterious figure, and Lily's vision then shifts from there. She suddenly ends up in this weird underground lab type looking room that's surrounded by thick glass walls, almost like she's in a bunker of some kind. And she sees Estelle lying on the table, strapped there, bleeding from where she was stabbed. And she's muttering a few words as she lays there dying. And she finally mutters the word Aluka. We have no idea what that means, but it's probably going to mean something very important later on. So we return to Lilith on her motorcycle. She's driving as fast as she can. She's trying to figure out a way to stop this vision from coming true because Estella's her good friend and she doesn't want her to die. But after some exposition, we learn that no matter what Lily does, the visions end up coming true anyway. She'll describe how like she trips up a fellow person like at the marketplace to keep them from accidentally getting run over by a cart, but in the end they end up getting run over like the next week or something. Or she'll put out a fire that happened in the house, but then the kitchen gets set on fire anyway. So she's trying to figure things out, but she's a little frantic because she knows that more than likely this isn't going to end up happening, and she doesn't really know what to do. While Lily is thinking about all these things, she ends up crashing her motorcycle, and she's gravely injured. Fortunately, a strange man appears on a horse to help her out. But I wasn't too upset about this whole ordeal because at first I was like, oh, great, this is definitely going to be like the love interest guy. He's likely going to be a jerk. But no, actually, he was pretty nice. He makes sure that like Lily is okay, and he says like, oh, this is going to need stitches. I'm going to drive you over on my horse to like the nearest cottage so that they can fix you up. So Lily's just kind of like, okay, well, I have better things to do because my friend's about to die, but I guess I have to. So she goes with him, and she learns that his name is Lord Strangeford. She's put off by the name, but other than that, there's no indication that this guy is actually weird. So I was very thankful for that. I was like, finally, a protagonist love interest who isn't a jerk. I was so excited. So she's receiving stitches from this old woman living at the cottage, and then she sees a newspaper lying to the side. She's bored, she's waiting, she decides to read it. She finds a headline titled Spiritualist Vampire Claims Another Victim. So it turns out that there's this killer stalking the streets of London, and the way he's leaving behind his victims, it almost seems like a vampire sort of situation. Lily suddenly has an idea. She thinks, this is awfully similar to that weird killer that was in the shadows when I saw that vision with Estelle, and it might have something to do with that. So she decides that she's going to do everything she can to figure out if there's a connection. Hopefully, if she's able to stop this killer, she can stop him from killing her friend or anyone else. So I was immediately invested in this because I really like gothic stuff. I really liked all of the different elements, like a killer in the London streets, the occult, even like the eugenics movement is going to be brought up. So I feel like that's going to be a major theme, and it's going to be a really interesting take on it with the speculative elements here. So all of it put together felt really fresh. It felt mysterious and engaging. And I also liked the characters. Like Lily, she seemed really capable despite all the stuff that she's up against. And like I admired how even though the visions always come true, she still tries over and over again to help people anyway. And I can admire that. Plus, like I mentioned before, I really like that Lord Strangeford actually felt like a nice person as compared to, like a bunch of other people we've looked at on Free Fridays. So I definitely want to continue reading this.
All right, thanks. Okay, so now we have book number 3. Let me make that a little bit bigger for you guys. Fates Divided by J. Barnard, the second of 4 books in the Helven Rising, a paranormal romance series. But when you look at it by publication date, it was actually the first book that was published. And I read the beginning of this one, and so did Lilibet, because we had a little bit of a scheduling issue going on. All right, so here's my take on it. So we start out with Elena, a college student. We meet her when she runs into her off-campus apartment, and she fills a pot with water, puts it on a counter, stares at it, thinks about how water gets hot, and the water starts boiling. And the same thing happened in chemistry class earlier that day, and she's freaking out. Why is she suddenly able to make water boil just by thinking about it? So she decides she has to go back to the lab and run some more experiments. But everything is closed. Still, she wants to go and find out. So she asks a cute boy living next door who's a chemistry major if he knows about any labs that might still be open. And she goes off to this lab, even though her roommate wants her to stay home to celebrate her 18th birthday. And the roommate just scored some fake IDs, so they could be out having fun instead. But no, Elena goes to this chemistry lab that her neighbor Derek has access to. And the lab is very cool. And we find out that this chem major, Derek, is some kind of genius with near photographic memory. And that's why he has special privileges like access to the lab, even though he's just an undergrad. And then we switch to Derek's point of view. He also thinks that Elena is hot, and he's first noticed her several months ago, but hasn't said anything. And while Elena does her experiments, he sits off to the side and tries to study. And then Elena makes something explode. So he grabs her, puts her under a decontamination shower because she's covered with some weird goo. She insists that she's safe, that the thing that exploded wasn't anything dangerous. But he's like, then why did it explode? And it's dripping down her face and down her neck. So he makes her take off her shirt. And there's a lot of sexual tension going on. But then he kicks her out of the lab. He doesn't want to lose his lab privileges. And she did just blow something up. He offers to walk her home to make sure she's safe. She's angry and walks off without him. But he follows her anyway, because you see, ever since he turned 18, he's been able to turn invisible or, do something that makes people not see him. So that's the beginning of the book. There's quite a bit of teenage drama here, a little bit too much. And there is this mystery of what happened, what powers do they have, why. But I wasn't as engaged in it as I was in the previous book I reviewed. So I'm not going to be sticking with it because I'm not a fan of drama. But if you are a fan of drama, and besides me, really, who isn't? You might really enjoy the book. It is very readable, and it does kind of pull you in. And Lilibet read this as well, and she did not like the writing style. She didn't like the main character. She didn't like the forced proximity. I guess she's talking about that shower. And she says it wasn't her kind of book and she won't be sticking with it. But she says if you're a fan of Fae, the supernatural and elemental magic, you might want to check this out. Okay, next we have Wraithwood by Tara Benner, the first of 3 books in a Wraithwood trilogy, fantasy adventure series. The other books are $5 each and are both in Kindle Unlimited, and it's the author's first time on our Free Friday list. And Kristen read this for us, but since she's not here today, Emma's going to tell us about it.
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying that this sounds like a really cool premise. It starts off, Kristen says, with Brittany's mother explaining that even though she's never told her daughter that she has an uncle, she's going to send her teenage daughter over to her uncle's house for the summer. So immediately I'm like, okay, that's a little weird, but let's go for it. So Brittany arrives at Uncle Merlin's house. She only has a few clothes. She arrives at this place called the Wraithwood Mansion. So, coming from the book, she's got no idea what she's in for. This sprawling house, Kristen says, it has no electricity, no water, so it already sounds kind of awful, but kind of cool at the same time. And on her first night in the dark mansion, she hears footsteps outside of her bedroom door. So Brittany sounds kind of like, just from reading this review, sounds like a character who doesn't always make the wisest decisions because she opens a door and with a flash of lightning, she sees a man dressed in an overcoat and boots treading the hallway. So she immediately shuts the door and goes back to bed. I wouldn't have opened the door at all to begin with, but that's just me. So the next morning, she meets the Wraithwood staff. They all seem nice, but they also seem pretty secretive. No one really tells her anything like what her uncle does for a living or anything like that. And then the housekeeper, she takes her on a tour of the house, but she also points out rooms that she's not allowed to go in because they aren't safe. I really want to know what that means. Because this mansion actually sounds pretty awesome if you think about it because of all the mystery surrounding it. So then Brittany finally meets Uncle Merlin. He's not what she expected. He seems nice, but she gets this odd feeling around him. Kristen says that he seems to move without actually moving. And one second he's in front of her, the next he's behind her. And this happens again later on when they end up going to church. Brittany ends up hiding in the bathroom because she's sort of freaked out by the whole thing. She overhears people talking about her and her uncle. Not only do they think that Brittany is a witch, but they also think that Uncle Merlin may have killed his parents. So there's a lot of dark mysteries that and secrets that are going on at Wraithwood. Young Brittany's stuck there for the whole summer. So Kristen said this book has me excited, and as a mystery fan, she's loving it so far. Everyone wants to know a secret. She's intrigued as to what the secrets of Wraithwood, Uncle Merlin, and Brittany's mother are hiding for everyone. She also says it's well written and fast paced. So if you're a fan of YA mysteries, you might really like this. And she's definitely going to put it on her TBR list, she says.
All right, thanks. Okay, so now before we get to the number one book on today's list and the coolest, like I said, it's a big box set. I want to thank our Patreon supporters. We are all volunteers at MetaStellar. So all the money raised from donations goes to pay for original fiction. And also the money that we raise from like sales of things like t-shirts. Oops. Oh. So yeah, that was weird. Yeah, yeah, a little bit of a sci-fi special effect there. Okay, so so number one book on today's list. Let me make that a little bigger for you guys. There's actually 6 books here. Only 3 of them fit in this little slot, but there's 6 books in this box set. And it's a cyberpunk sci-fi series. The books are normally $5 each, and they're all in Kindle Unlimited. It's the author's first time on our Free Friday list, so you're getting 6 times 5, $30 worth of books here. And TERRI read this for us. TERRI, what did you think of these books?
I think buckle up, you're in for a heck of a ride. Because the action starts from the very beginning. In the prologue, because I read these things, we meet Travis Smith, who was an up-and-coming boxer when he was 18, but then he went to prison 10 years ago because 3 armed assailants attacked him, and he, unarmed, killed 2 of them in self-defense. They put him away for 8 years for that. He fell in with bad company while he was in prison, and now he's been out for 2 years. So he's stuck with the guy he met in prison, and he's also been doing some mugging on the side. Now, this particular mugging he's doing is a particularly very rich man with a military bearing, and it doesn't go as planned. The victim's reactions are like inhuman and inhumanly fast. Before Travis loses consciousness, he notices the man is wearing a pin with 3 stars in a straight line, and he barely has time to wonder about it before he passes out. And so we move into chapter 1, where we meet Jason and Rachel Hunt, an accountant and a scientist respectively, who live in Florida and own a duplex in New York. Rachel has just received a job offer from Guardian Manufacturing, a pharmaceutical company. Now, the owner at the helm of this pharmaceutical company is worth more than $3 billion, and he fits the Playboy billionaire stereotype. But seeing the man's picture on the cover of a magazine, Jason thinks that the man has the eyes of a shark. Hard, cold-blooded killer with no sense of humor. At this point, precisely on time, a courier shows up with several binders covering the agreement between Rachel and Guardian, including multiple non-disclosure and security documents. Now, Rachel's salary will be amazing, and she's excited about the work she'll be doing with prosthetics that will be better than healthy limbs. The company's Guardian's Brooklyn lab has been doing some real cutting-edge stuff, and she's very excited about it. The only fly in the ointment for 2 of them that they can see at this point is that they'll have to move back to their New York apartment so Rachel can work in that lab. Now, Rachel and Jason have this really engaging discussion about technology trickling down to the masses and whether people would want to replace healthy limbs with prosthetics, even if the prosthetics are superior. They kind of tease each other back and forth, so you know it's a good relationship about that. And so all this is going on during a celebratory dinner. They don't pay much attention to the 2 large men in off-the-rack suits that enter the restaurant and appear to be watching them. Next chapter, they're flying back to New York, and Rachel and Jason notice a suited but creepy man tailing Rachel, but he goes away as they leave the airport. At that point, the couple grab a cab, which the author alternates between calling a town car and a limousine. The driver is this really cheerful guy who we learn has served active duty in the military and just came back home 2 months ago. Good thing, too, because someone starts shooting at them. It's quite a chase scene at this point, but the cabbie manages to lose them. And he pries one of the bullets out of the car and identifies it as a military-grade bullet that's used mainly in a rifle that is typically used by the special forces. Now, if that's not enough to get you intrigued about what's going on, this book clearly isn't for you. But nearly all the characters I've read so far in the book seem pretty well fleshed out, including the limousine driver, who I have reason to believe we'll meet again, possibly sooner rather than later. Jason and Rachel clearly have a good marriage. They tease each other during dinner about their different points of view, but Jason clearly supports his wife's decision, even though it means a move and he might need to find another job. The Amazon description of the book hints at some pretty interesting changes ahead. Now, do I plan to stick with it? Very probably, but not quite right away, because this kind of story has a way of sucking me in, and I've got stuff I need to do this weekend. So if you're into action, mystery, corporate intrigue, and a one-man fight against a cabal of the rich, this might be the book series for you.
Thanks. And thanks, TERRI, and thanks, Lilivette and Kristen, wherever you guys may be tonight, for helping out with these reviews. And also, I want to particularly do a shout out to our viewer, only known as Old Wool Factory, because they've been leaving comments on our videos and saying that they get a lot of ideas for books to read from them. And that is really heartwarming. Thank you, Old Wool. We really appreciate it. All right, everybody, we'll see you next Friday. If you don't want to miss any of these videos, subscribe to the channel, like it, you know, all the things. And also don't forget that we have a newsletter so you can get these book recommendations in your email every Friday. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great weekend and enjoy your reading. Bye-bye.
Bye.